Hey everybody, we're back with Schmore shout-outs. Schmore shout-outs from last week's couple of episodes. So let's get into those really quick before we get into our normal episode for this week. You'll notice if you look closely over here in the studio, live in studio, we have Mama. Hi, Ma.
Mama. Hello, I'm so glad to be here in the same room with you guys.
I bet you our tech diffs are going to be a lot less.
Probably.
Doing it this way.
Yeah.
Instead of having to go all the way across the country and dealing with bad internet and dealing with all kinds of tech diffs.
Yes.
Tech diffs.
All right, let's get some shout outs out of the way. We got an email after our episode on selfishness, and that email came from none other than Mr. Deadeye himself, Nick Dolan.
Wow. Hey, Nick.
Yeah, a good friend of ours, a trivia buddy that we've known for quite some time. He sent us an email that said, I have to agree with Mama Cat on this episode. Doing heating and air conditioning for a living, I continue to help family and friends, even though there are some that I don't feel really appreciate the help and even seem to expect the help. The calls come often when I have very little time to spare. I'm not paid and have often felt worse after doing something most would consider a good deed. I must have some other internal motivation to do this, as I promise pay or joy are not the motivating factors. I believe guilt and obligation can be just as powerful.
That's not wrong.
You're right. Your biggest fan, Nick Dolan. So thanks for the biggest fan, and thanks for your input on that. I would say that is something we didn't touch on in our episode.
No, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, and
that's
I
true.
It is. Obligation is huge. We mentioned it one time when we were joking about helping each other move as an obligation. Sure. Guilt, we didn't mention. My encouragement to Nick, if you're listening, is...
If he's listening, give me a break.
Nick, you're listening. Would be... I would encourage, I guess, to figure out how to, in your own life, be able to tell people no. Boundaries are huge, and understanding that it is okay for when it's unwarranted or, guilt. I think that's something that's hard to squash, but boundaries are important for your own well-being. And Mom, what are your thoughts about what he said?
Well, I think being with friends and family, especially I think about family, and I think about our situation where we go south in the wintertime, and I feel like I want to be so careful not to overstep any of those boundaries and responsibility, the things that I ask you kids to do for us while we're gone, and to make sure that if you do, which you do all the time, that I make sure that know that it's very appreciated and not expected. And I hope you'll all know that, but I understand Nick's quandary with that, because there is you want to do things for your family, and but you also just need that little peak of
and it shouldn't be expected.
No,
like that's the thing, like Nick has helped me here, but my hope is, Nick, if you're listening, that you've never felt like it's gone unappreciated. Right. And anything that we do for each other, it's huge. Being able to tell someone thank you, and I really appreciate it, and being willing to help them when and if they ever ask for it.
Right.
Those are... I don't like the thought of somebody coming and doing something or helping in some way and not giving them money, giving them thanks, giving them something in return.
Feeding them anything.
Right.
Or just bartering. I mean, if you know that you have a skill that they don't have, and when they need something in that area done, you can help back. I mean, that's huge. And it does feel like family when you do it that way. But I think there's a fine line of, where do you overstep that line of asking and doing nice things for people and accepting that, and then being taken advantage of. But that's no fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, Nick, thank you for your email. Anyone else who sends emails, we will read that on air unless you specifically tell us not to. And we'll make some comments about it, and we really appreciate that. We also got a couple comments. Here's a comment from the same episode about selfishness. This comes from YouTube. Somebody named Dream Fairy.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know Dream Fairy?
Yeah, I sure do.
It's Phaery.
Yeah.
It's a fairy.
Yeah.
Dream Fairy says, love the topic here, selfishness. Or this is, if I didn't say it, it's from our selfishness. Love the topic here. I never really thought too much about being selfish by nature, but it's very true. I'm a preschool teacher and always teaching the children to share and take turns. It typically starts with them saying, quote, I want. Mm-hmm. Thinking of others and the realization that the world doesn't revolve around us is something that we learn as we grow. And she made a couple star emojis and a this emoji. Mm-hmm. So Dream Fairy, thank you for that comment. Yeah. Anything on that?
No, I agree. It's interesting, though. I didn't know she was a preschool teacher. That's awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She has a lot of cool pictures that are like her in like glowing face paint.
Yeah, she does the she's a tarot reader, and she also does the glowing hoops, like the hula hoops.
Cool.
Yeah, it's real neat.
Yeah.
She posts videos about that. She'll be in her backyard or in her room or whatever, doing that.
Yeah,
really
I can't
neat.
think of anybody better to ask about child development than a preschool teacher.
Right, no kidding.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad she listened, and I'm glad that she chimed in on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, Dream Fairy. Okay, what else we got? We've got a couple more here from episode 4. Let's see. Download the video because it's actually a video.
Uh-oh.
It's all right. We got this. So this was actually a comment to our episode 4, which was the positive impact episode. Mm-hmm. This comes from Kimberly Whitehill.
Yeah.
She says, so we did a short where we were talking about Mom and how lucky we are to have her, and she commented, just me ugly crying at the end of the episode. And she made a...
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, if you can't see that.
She told me that she was laying in bed ugly crying at the very end when Mom was telling us what we do to make other people, or to make her live, but I don't remember what it was. It was something like that. But.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Kim Whitehill.
Yeah, thanks, Kimmers.
Is Kim the one that gave me the cup?
Yeah, the mug.
Oh my gosh, she gave me the sweetest cup.
Super
I'll have to
sweet.
bring it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last one for this shout out session.
Mm-hmm.
Session.
Shout out session.
Shout out session. This comes from our episode 5, which was anger.
Oh yeah.
Anger is a reaction to other emotions. YouTube at user HW3LV6LB9W.
Well,
which might have just been the username that was given to them.
I assume so.
But they say, yes, anger is what we call a secondary emotion. It is never the first thing that you are feeling. It's just the easiest thing to recognize when you are in that emotional state. It is not until later reflection when you can stop and think and process what it was that triggered this to happen.
Yeah.
So thank you, user, because that means you listened, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, we do. That's awesome.
Yep.
So,
and it's validating.
It is. Yeah. It means that we did something right. So everyone else who didn't comment, thanks a lot, because we,
no thanks to you. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
If you listened, that's plenty.
Right.
Yeah. But we want you to comment too.
Right. Comment or email what you think on our episodes on Spotify. If you get on there, we do have a poll or a question and answer section. You can get on there and answer our question of the week or a question of the episode.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You should pay more attention to our show. So that's cool.
Sorry, I usually don't listen on Spotify, but maybe I should chime in.
That's all right. If you do, we'll read you on the air. Okay, that's it for shout outs. Enjoy our episode. Mom, great to have you here. They won't be seeing
Great
you
to
on
be
this
here.
episode until like several weeks down
Yep.
the
Oh,
line.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you will be on this shout out. So
Yep.
Yeah.
there's a little spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
See you in
Anyway,
the future.
Mom's
See ya.
home.
bye y'all.
Bye.
One, two, threes, two
Un, dos,
swans.
tres.
1, 2, 3, 2 swans.
Un,
One or
dos,
two.
dos.
You wanted
Tres.
to. You one of two. Register
Cinco.
kids was table. You one of two. You're kind of fable. You one of two.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Can we move on?
Whoa.
Ladies and
Don't
gentlemen,
know
welcome to
what
My
you're-
Mama Done Told Me.
Oh.
And she's telling us how annoying we are.
I feel like I'm left out. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, let's talk about what you want to talk about, Ma. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of My Mama Done Told Me. I am one of your three hosts, Jeff, and I'm here with Lauren
What's up?
and Mom.
Then hey, am I supposed
And
to say
hey.
ho ho ho?
Ho, ho,
Ho,
ho.
ho, ho.
Ho ho.
That was so weird.
I don't know why I said it. It just came out.
It did.
If you're new to our show, we are a brother and a sister and a mother, and we sit down and talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Well, as long as Mom wants to talk about it too.
Oh, yeah, because she gets mad at us when we talk about things that she doesn't understand.
What? It's like,
It's true.
hey, I don't know what's going on. Tell me, please.
This is called the magic of banter, Ma. We do it before every show, and that's what brings us in. You hear our...
Well, I don't know that, and I don't. Okay.
That's our theme song.
Okay. Gotcha.
Sorry.
Can you stop that?
I am trying.
Okay, well, today we are going to talk about a heartwarming topic that's near and dear to everybody's heart in this room.
Mhm.
Not me.
An institution created to help people get out of situations that they don't want to be in anymore. Our topic of conversation today is that of divorce. Divorce.
Divorce.
Divorce.
Right? We are a family.
Divorce.
We are a family that comes from a lot of divorce, right? And we made it through just fine so far. So far.
I would say the so
So
far is the
far.
key word. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate it.
You hate divorce.
Well, I mean, I'm better off for it, but it's not the best feeling. No.
No, it's a crappy feeling, but it's also sometimes a means to a necessary end. Okay,
true.
so but the topic today specifically, so that we can keep this in the 30-minute time range, is why do you think so many marriages end in divorce? So as our listeners and our people in the room think about how they want to respond to that, just as a little history for our family, and I think we mentioned it on one of our previous episodes, but we have a lot of divorce in our family. And, so Mom was born into a family, and then her parents got divorced. Lauren and I's mom and dad got divorced when we were very young. Lauren has a divorce or two under her belt. Most of our... Let's see. How was that funny to you, Mother?
no,
Interesting. I'm gonna remember this.
none of it's funny. It is not funny.
But you either cry or you laugh, right? So let's choose laughter.
Right. Let's choose
Okay.
laughter.
Uh-huh.
Lauren, just put yourself back in the float tank
Yeah, I'm gonna
Breathe.
hold on.
Wah, 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 wah.
I'm gonna do the 4-7-9 breath.
4-7-9 breath.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if those are the numbers, but yes.
Okay, Lauren, do you want to start? You want to talk
Yeah.
about the marriage and divorce and what your thoughts are on that?
Well, the question is, why do I think so many marriages end in divorce?
Excuse me.
Correct?
Excuse me. I
Yes.
said Lauren.
Oh, I thought you said
You always get to start, Ma.
Okay, we'll let Lauren start and go for it.
Okay.
Oh, we'll let Lauren start.
we're
You know
good.
what? I'm going to start.
All right.
I'm feeling ornery today. Oh, for our listeners, this is our first episode in several weeks that we didn't have technical difficulties at the beginning, and I'm knocking on classic wood here, but
I'm gonna knock on the plywood just in case.
okay. Yeah,
I knocked on the wood panel.
Oh, good. We've got it all covered.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, Lauren. Let's talk about this.
You want to talk about?
Let's Taco Bell.
Okay.
Let's Taco Bell it.
In answer to the question, why do I think so many marriages end in divorce? I think it has a lot to do with communication. I have learned that unless you speak your mind, people can't read it. It's crazy.
Ain't that the truth?
But I think that there's a lot of misunderstandings that happen when you don't communicate effectively. And I think that, may be one of the biggest culprits as to why there are so many divorces in our country. I don't know about other countries, but in the U.S. for sure, I just think that there's a lot to be said for, remaining, keeping up conversations as well as like date nights and things like that to keep things not redundant. And, because living with the same person for a really long time is
difficult.
Yeah. No matter who you are, I don't care if you're the most perfect for each other couple out there. If you fail to communicate, then that causes a lot of unnecessary problems, because some things that may piss somebody off enough to be actually mad, or go somewhere in their mind, because a lot of it, I think, is just people making up stories in their mind. But if you're not talking about it and you're not being honest with each other,
right?
Who knows? Who knows what's,
If you're willing to get a little bit vulnerable here, sister.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like communication or lack thereof was a big reason for your divorce, your splits, divorces?
In my first marriage, no.
Right.
I think that was the first time was more of a manipulative addiction,
right,
abusive, borderline.
Yeah.
I don't want to say borderline abusive because it was straight up abusive, but
right. Yeah.
It's also the father of my son. So
right.
I wouldn't change it, but
for that reason that reason only.
Right.
Right.
But it was a volatile relationship, and that's what made that happen.
Right.
But I think so. In my second marriage, I think that probably some communication could have gone a long way. But there has to be an openness on both sides.
Yeah.
For the communication. And if you're communicating and the other person is shutting you down all the time.
Right. Well, that's not
going to work. It's a two-way street.
That's a one-sided communication.
Right.
And that's not effective.
And I'm not saying that I'm the one that was communicating all the time.
Nope.
There was definitely times when I shut it down.
Nobody's taking it that,
Right.
you know, you were saying that you were perfect or anything.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
No, and
I did a lot of things wrong. I just, I feel like if there had been an open line of communication,
From
and
the
I
beginning.
think, yes.
Yeah.
And I think also, but I think that some of the things that happened in my first marriage hindered me from communicating in my second marriage because I was afraid, and this is something that I'm still working through in therapy, like right now.
Trauma.
Right, because a lot, and it's not all my ex-husband's fault, because there was some other things that played in as when we were little and stuff like that I hate confrontation. I hate it. And and it's not the confrontation that I don't like, it's the reaction from the other person. So when I were to communicate with my first husband, you never knew how he was going to respond.
Right.
And a lot of times it was explosive. And I still find myself holding myself back now from communicating
Yeah.
because I'm afraid that that's going to happen.
Right. And you create, like you were saying before, you create scenarios in your own head of how this could turn out, even if it's not. And that is a 100% by the book trauma response.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I even deal with that in my marriage right now because my wife comes from a divorce and didn't have the greatest reactions, you know, and she would, if she were sitting right here, she would admit to you, you know, like I have to tell myself this is not the same situation.
And that's
I'm not
where,
going to get the same, you know, and that she's done a lot of self-work on that. And, you know, and so things are good.
But that's so hard.
Very.
It's so hard to get over.
Very.
And it's like, you know, even now with the therapy that I'm undergoing now, I'm having to, you know, remind myself that the person I'm with now isn't
Right.
that person.
Yeah.
And my second husband wasn't like that.
Right.
But
yeah, so I think the communication piece, you know, in every relationship is going to be probably the most, if not one of the most, if not the most important piece of it.
yeah.
And you mentioned this, and I can't, you know, one of the things that my wife and I were very, I guess, open about before we ever even decided to get married was, you know, it has to be not only a willingness to communicate, but a willingness to receive said communication. And how, you know, because everyone will say, I just want to be open. Well, no one thinks about, well, I'm not saying no one, but a lot of people don't realize that means I also have to be willing to receive that communication and do it lovingly and respectfully. Receiving communication is way harder than communicating.
1,000%.
And, you know, because defenses want to go up, you know, it makes you feel like you're being judged or being criticized or nitpicked. And, you know, it's such a fragile balance of trying to communicate and receive that communication in a way and always in the forefront. I don't even want to say the back of your mind, but in the forefront of your mind saying, this person loves me and I love this person and they're trying to maintain this, not tear me down.
Right.
Now, the danger there, and I think where a lot of times it leads to things like divorce or splitting of relationships or whatever it may be, the danger is that somebody doesn't receive it well, or they do it so much. Like if I were always telling my wife things that I didn't like about what she was doing and going, yeah, but I love you. So, you know, then it starts to feel like abuse, and it starts to feel, and it probably is, it starts to feel like manipulation, and it starts to feel like I'm digging into her. Well, that's not cool either.
No.
I don't just have a free reign to say whatever I want about everything. Like a lot of that's on me, you know? So it's a very fine
Yeah, there's a
and
balance that you
fragile
have to find, and
line.
I think it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of
Vulnerability.
yeah. Like, laying it all out there and just being able to take yourself aside. I don't know if you've ever read that book, The Four Agreements.
Mm-mm.
You should definitely. Is it 4 agreements or 5? I think it's 4.
The fifth one doesn't really matter that
I think
much.
it's 4. But there's 4 of them, but one of them is it's basically about not taking things personally.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so hard.
Yeah, it is.
But you have to, in order to be, a friendship, even a familial relationship, any kind of relationship you have, coworkers, you have to, you have to put, you have to keep that in mind. Like, they're not attacking me.
Right. Unless they are.
Yeah. I mean, but, if it's somebody who you have a give and take relationship with.
Right.
Especially with somebody you're married to.
Right.
You have to have that in mind when they come to you with something, because it's not because they hate you and they want, the relationship not to work. It's because they want it to work is the reason why they're coming to you. Otherwise, they'd just leave or not say anything or whatever.
Why would I be doing this?
Right.
Yeah. Ma, we'll get to your what your answer to our question is, but do you have thoughts on what we've been saying so far?
Well, I totally agree. And I guess commitment wasn't the first thing communication wasn't the first thing that came to my mind. Commitment was, but I think commitment, goes along with communication. I mean, all those things go along. And as I was kind of reading about this week, I was in everybody in there. You said you're going to get back to me later. So do you want me to wait with what I had? And
no, go ahead. There's no rules
I totally
here.
agree with what Lauren said, because I think communication is huge. And if you can't ask a question, if you can't have a discussion, if you can't be open with your partner, I mean, that shuts the door on a lot of stuff. You've got to be able to say what you need and have that need addressed, whether they can meet it or not. I mean, I don't think I don't even pretend that my partner can meet every need that I have, but to know what my needs are and to empathize with that is a huge thing. And to say, well, I'm not going to go quilt with you, honey, but you can go on a retreat and, we'll put that in the budget every 6 months if you need it. But I think communication is huge. And my first marriage did not have that. It was totally one-sided, and that would be your dad. And I'm not dissing your dad, but we had a terrible communication issue there, and he would admit that, I'm sure. But it's terrible when it's one-sided and you're trying to communicate and you can't. It's like not an easy thing to get through.
Yeah, and I think too, just in just relationships that I've had, thankfully, in my opinion, I waited until I was quite a bit older to get married. And, we kind of had our shoes on already, so to speak. We were kind of ready to start running at that point. And so I think in some ways we were a little ahead of the race but regardless, I've had relationships in the past, and, even in that realm, it doesn't take very many times of trying to communicate something and have it shut down for you to never want to communicate again.
Right.
And
right. Exactly.
And it's just so hard to, like, how can I talk to you about communication without communicating with you? And how are you going to meet those needs if I can't talk to you about it? And I'm probably not meeting some of yours too, because you're not telling me what they are, or you're not being realistic about what they are, or you're being pushy about what they are, or, and again, that goes back to that fragile balance of
or the false expectation that somebody can read your mind, or you're reading their mind because they're not saying anything. I mean, so it's like, okay, I'm thinking, you're thinking this. but that person's not thinking that at all, or they're thinking
Right.
I'm thinking this, but I'm not telling them. So they think it. So it's like you can't read each other's mind. You have to tell them.
No, and then you start creating things in your mind, and it just spirals.
Yeah, that's such a dangerous thing to create those scenarios in your mind, because you start to feel like it's true, and you see those there's memes out there where it's like when she thinks he's cheating, but what he's really doing, and he's like playing in the mud with his friends, or like it's just stupid stuff. But it's like there's some truth to that, like more often than not. But there's also plenty of times where people are being crappy. There's so many. We live in a world right now where it's so very easy to get tied up and sucked into bad things and things that are not good for your relationship. And that
the number one reason for divorce in the United States today is infidelity.
Right. Social media makes it extremely easy to get onto a website or whatever. I mean, there's ones that are specifically for cheating, which is insane to me. But
they exist.
Here we are.
Right. Mom, did you take that stat from somewhere? Is that truly what
I took it. I took it from Forbes Advisor. There was a lot of information that I saw on there. It also said that divorce rates have dropped since 2000. Since 2000, divorce rates have dropped from 4.0. That's 4.0 people per thousand to 2.5. But
is that because people aren't getting married?
Yeah, no, that's the people that are getting divorced. And then, but the marriage rate has also dropped about the same amount. So fewer people are getting married. So it's about a wash there. Yeah, it's just about a wash. But I thought it was interesting that it said that half of first marriages end in divorce. 67% of second marriages end in divorce.
Wow. Okay.
And now hear this one, Lauren. 73% of third marriages end in divorce.
Well,
and 40%. So it says 40% of new marriages include a partner that's been married before. So, so those are statistics to look at. That it's not easy to stay married. I think you have to look at the reason why is it that people get married? Why do you want to be married as opposed to just living together? And Jeff, I didn't write the specifics down on the actual percentage on this one down, but there was a percentage on there, or a statistic that talked about people that lived together before marriage had more of a chance of divorce than people that did not live together before they were married.
Interesting. Any thoughts
but they said
to why?
They attributed that to most people that don't live together before they're married have religious beliefs that probably would add to their commitment when they did get married. I mean, that was the answer to that, which makes sense to me.
Yeah. I could see that. I have such differing views. I mean, obviously you guys know my wife and I lived together before we got married, and I think that was a good thing for us. I can also see, because I think about anything else in our life, we very rarely commit as fully to as we do to a spouse, right? And even less do we commit fully to without test driving it or whatever it may be. So it's such a life altering decision made without really testing what that could be like.
Right.
Because some of we talked about this during our anger episode, where some of the most frustrating, some frustrating things are when don't show themselves into, I guess we didn't talk about that, but like, Mom, you talked about just like bumping into your husband in the, getting annoyed, but those things you don't know
right
until,
or even something as simple as snoring. How do you know that your partner isn't going to keep you up all night? Like if I would not be able, I wouldn't be able to do that. If Zach was a snorer, I would never be able to sleep in the same room as him.
Yeah, and then that goes right back to communication. Going, am I able to talk to my spouse and say, hey, doesn't mean I don't love you, but I can't sleep in the same room. Okay. Well, is that person going to feel offended by that?
Probably.
Or is that person going to feel,
not necessarily, Lauren. Honestly, now where I am now, people are a little more open about that. There's a lot of people that don't sleep in the same bedroom for that very reason. They still have a loving relationship. They still have all that, but they can't because they can't get a good night's sleep without it.
Right.
And that's
all goes back to
because that's gone on for years in the past. You know, I mean, it's like, well, my husband and I haven't slept. And I'm not saying I've heard people say my husband and I have not slept in the same bedroom for decades because he snores. And they still have a loving relationship. There's still, a healthy marriage, but they just can't do it. So that's communication. That's, that's
it all comes
that's love to me.
Right. It all comes back to communication, like the way Lauren started the conversation is, can you communicate those things and receive that communication in a way that is loving and respectful and understanding?
Right.
Because as one half of a marital relationship myself, the last thing I want to do is be the reason my spouse is feeling anything but good.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be the reason for anxiety. I don't want to be the reason for not being able to sleep. I don't want to be the reason for frustration. I only want to be the reason for annoyance when I'm trying to annoy her by doing something silly, but that's only to an extent,
right?
Where it's superficial and hopefully funny, and not push that past that.
Yeah.
But, I don't want to be the cause of bad feelings ever.
Right.
I don't want that ever once. I mean, I've made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. And, that's something that it's an unrealistic expectation to think you're never going to cause an ill feeling in somebody, especially if you're trying to communicate healthy with them, knowing I may have to say something because I love you and I know you love me, and something that's not going to feel like sunshine and rainbows, and I have to understand that even though that made you feel bad when I said it, hopefully we're both
for the best.
And we're both mature enough to understand that it was okay for me. It had to be okay for me to say that. And there's just it's so damn fragile. And
I feel like when we talked about anger the other time, that other episode that we talked about anger, I feel like love is kind of the same way. It really struck me today when I was looking, because everybody in their wedding and most weddings have, what is it? 1 Corinthians 13, the verse, love is patient, love is kind. You've all heard it a million times. You know what it is. All those things fall under the water of we had the iceberg with love. All this stuff, the iceberg, underneath that is commitment, acceptance, tolerance, security, physical attraction, understanding, compassionate, kind, not arrogant, not rude, communicative, not resentful. And if those things aren't met, or are met, if they are met, then there's love. And if they aren't met, you got a problem. Those things create the response of love. And when I was, the whole time I was married, I've been married to Larry for almost 35 years. And I always loved that verse, but I thought that's what I should get. That's, he needs to treat me with respect. He needs to treat me with patience and kindness and all these things. But then you have to remember it's reciprocal. You have to do it too. oh, wait, it's me. And that's kind of what you were saying
Right.
earlier, Lauren. It's like, it's a two-way street. Communication
Right.
isn't just one-sided. Love is two-sided. And if you give all those things, I feel like if you receive all these things that are under that iceberg of love, then you're going to give it back. And if you give all those things, then you're going to receive it. So it's kind of a compromise
Yeah.
between two people that really, that's what really, to me, creates love.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. I will say though that I also think it's you have to have the blinders off enough to be able to say that, to be able to see when you're receiving those things in the way that person can give. Right. So, and being able to compromise, because the classic love languages, right? Where people talk about, and I don't know for sure how I feel about all that, but I do think that there is some serious truth about it is easier for some people to give in certain types of give love, to show love in certain types of ways, and to receive it in certain types of ways,
But
and
doesn't
if
that
you're
go
not
back to
hang on a second. If you're not so like aware of those differences and of those things, then you can very easily get to a point where you're not feeling loved, so you're not feeling like you should show love. But once you're aware of those things and how to show and receive it, and being willing to compromise those things to go, it might not be my favorite thing in the world to, I don't know. Whatever,
clean the kitchen or whatever it is.
To acts of servitude or whatever it means. It might not be, but I know that shows love to my partner, right? That's how my partner sees.
That goes right back to communication. That goes right back to both of you communicating to each other what is important and what expresses that love to each other.
Right.
And then
And
both of you being willing to compromise that.
Yeah, being willing to show love in that way.
In the way that your partner receives it.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And the most fully or whatever.
Right.
Because if you're giving gifts to somebody who sees that as just
you being like frivolous with your money,
right,
and not,
right. Well, because like my partner, he is a very minimalistic person. So if I were to give him gifts all the time, he doesn't want that. That isn't, it's like, it's almost like anxiety inducing to him to have that much stuff that he has to find a place for or,
and receive it in a certain way.
And your face has to look like you're appreciative and all of that kind of stuff. And you're put on the spot and, it's now that doesn't mean I don't ever buy him anything, but I know that if I really want to show him, that I was thinking about him or whatever, I'll either, I'll do the laundry before he gets home and have it folded and put away so he doesn't have to do it, or empty the dishwasher or whatever it is, because his love language, I know 100% is acts of service. Whereas that's not mine. I don't care. Please don't do my laundry. Like, I would rather do my own stuff. My love language is different. And so, if he were to do things like that for me, that I'm not seeing that as love. I mean, not that I'm not seeing it as love, but I don't receive that as well.
That's not your way of being. Like, it's not like you're gonna go, well, what the heck, you jerk? Like, why'd you do my laundry? Don't you dare
put my laundry
But
away.
You might be like, you don't need to do that.
My
like,
laundry.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, and so
that's just an example. I wasn't.
I know. And
I really don't care if anybody does my laundry. You're welcome to come to my house and do my laundry if you'd like.
You're not welcome to come to my house. That's for sure. But yeah, I agree. And to go back to the question, why do you think so many marriages end in divorce? I do think I agree with you guys that communication and everything that falls under that is the thing. Because even if you look at Forbes list and you go infidelity, well, yes, I do. I can see how that may be the straw that broke the camel's back to end the marriage. But that's not where it started.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if you were communicating to your partner what you weren't receiving in the relationship that you wish you were,
you may not have
you
ever
wouldn't
gotten to
have
that
probably gone somewhere else to get it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Yeah.
because either they would say, I can't provide that for you, we need to split.
Figure out something. Yeah.
Or they would say,
I didn't know that.
I didn't know, and I will work on it, or whatever
and there could be a laundry list of other things
Sure.
on that are under the surface that have been festering for years and years and years.
Right. Because if you don't talk about it, that's what happens.
Right. It all stays underneath, and then you blow up like a volcano.
Right.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Mom, any passing words? I was expecting on this, so we're about at time, but I was expecting on this one for you to bring in some of your faith, and I don't want you to feel like you can't talk about those sort of things if you want to.
I feel like I did by bringing up the scripture verse, because I found that really when Larry and the listeners or watchers don't know this, but when your stepfather Larry and I met in 80 something, we only knew each other 5 weeks or 5 months before we got married, and we wanted to be together in a loving relationship way, and we did not feel like
Bow, chicka, bow, wow.
Stop. Disgusting.
and we felt like that was not the right thing to do in the eyes of Jesus, and we didn't want to do it that way in front of you kids, and so we got married. But we talked.
I don't ever want you to do it that way in front of us, Mother.
Well, you know what I meant. With you living together in the same house with you kids being at home, I did not want to do that. Too much information. Don't touch
TMI.
Oh my gosh.
Don't touch your ears, Mom.
Anyway, I didn't. Anyway, we talked. We had a lot of conversations about it, and one of the things was that if we were to get married, we would never, ever divorce. We were going into this with 100% commitment before God and before ourselves and before our friends and family. And here we are 35 years later after only knowing each other for 5 months. It worked out great.
That's insane.
Right? I mean, not that we haven't had our little.
Of course. I mean, I don't know any relationship that doesn't.
No, and we're in love and we love each other and we're in for the long haul. And for us, it really meant a lot. And that's why I was saying a lot of these marriages that did stay together, a lot of it is because of their faith or because of their religious beliefs or whatever. And for us, it's just now we feel like, we're together to the end.
Yeah. I think that, you and I had a conversation it's probably been a few weeks, a month or more ago now, in person, that, to going back to your faith a little bit, and is it necessary to have faith to have those kind of that kind of commitment? No, but it gives you something together, I think, to sort of build your structure on.
Yeah, it kind of bolsters it.
I feel like it's an anchor. It's an anchor.
It gives you some reason almost behind your decisions. Yeah. So whatever that faith may be, whatever that religious structure may be that you and your partner, agree on, it's why you very rarely see people of opposing religions or faiths or lack of religions and faiths, having long lasting relationships it's
tough. That would be tough.
Right. And not to say that it doesn't ever happen, but you have to have a certain level of acceptance of the other person's, views and all that. So anyway, that may be something for a different.
I do have a friend who is a Christian, and she's a wonderful little gal, but her husband is not. He's an atheist, and they have 2 children who are very confused. And I feel for the kids because they're torn. The dad is teaching one thing and the mom is teaching something else, and it's very difficult for them as a family to keep that on an even keel. The kids don't know what to think. I don't know. It's hard for them. And they're teenagers now, so it's getting harder every day. But anyway, so it's not.
Well,
it's
that may be a topic that we can dive into some other time. So we want to know what our viewers or listeners think. Why do so many marriages end in divorce? Do you agree with us that communication is super important, or do you think that it's just because someone doesn't wash their feet or they, I don't know, something like that? Does your partner stank?
Feet. Feet.
I think that
We have matchy shoes almost.
Oh my God.
We're both wearing all black and gray and everything. We're very matchy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can get my foot up there. But
Oh my God. Wait.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been an episode of My Mama Done Told Me. My mama just showed me the bottom of her foot.
Oh my God, my mama done showed me the bottom of her foot.
We're gonna get more plays on this episode for people who are into feet stuff. Oh my goodness, the emails will be rolling in. Let us know what you think about our topic today. Our email address is
My Mama Done Told Me podcast@gmail.com.
My Mama Done Told Me podcast@gmail.com.
Did I not say it right?
You
Got
did,
it.
but
That's what
you kind of said it.
I said it weird?
You said it weird, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right, though.
My Mama Done Told Me podcast@gmail.com.
We are on the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X.
Tiki-talkie.
Tiki-talkie. And all that will be in our shoy noise.
Shoy noise.
Shoy noise. So, with that being said, we hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other. And until next time, my mama done told me to
choose your partner every day.
So communicate.
I don't know. I feel like you need to wake up and choose to love your partner.
Bye, listeners.
Goodbye. Has good day.
Shoes.
There you go.
Ew, what's on the bottom of my foot?
Do I have
choose your partner?
Put my foot up again?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
It's weird.
Are you sure? Do you want me to?
I'm sure.
No. Oh my gosh.
Get out of here with that.